We are already seeing an absolute flood of anti-LGBTQ bills being introduced in state legislatures across the country. Last year, there were 510. And let's jump into some of what's on offer in different states. Remember, this is an election year. This is what Republicans across the country think they should be focusing on to convince America to keep them in charge. In Florida, there's a bill to ban public buildings from flying a flag that represents a political viewpoint, including but not limited to a politically partisan, racial, sexual orientation, and gender or political ideology viewpoint. Obviously, that is designed to kill the pride flag and other affiliated flags. I'm sure they'll come up with a way to allow the Confederate flag. Ban government employees that receive state money from requiring that employees use the correct pronouns for their colleagues, and would even ban disciplinary action against people who misgender their colleagues. So interesting thing going on in Florida right now, two dueling bills. Neither are laws, but one is saying that if you try to require me to say this thing, I can potentially sue you. And then another is, if you call me a racist, I can sue you for that. They've really weird mixed up views on free speech down there. But anyway, in Tennessee, there's a bill to allow for so-called obscene books to be banned from the public library if just 2% of the number of people who voted in the last gubernatorial election sign a petition. So that's fun, trying to just make it easier for people to strip books out of libraries that they haven't read, they're not familiar with, but they don't want anyone else to read. In Missouri, there's a bill that teachers wouldn't be allowed to talk at all about sexual orientation or gender identity to students in kindergarten through 3rd grade, and would be limited in what they could say to older students. So sort of a don't say gay bill, but for Missouri. And also to make it so that any bar or restaurant that has drag performances be deemed as a sexually oriented business. Although again, drag as an art form is not a sexual art form. But they're gonna pretend that it is because they need something to demonize in this election year. So there's a lot going on. Definitely look into your own state because there's a good chance there's going to be something going on in this area. Brett, what do you make of this, particularly as a major focus in this general election year?
I just don't think it has legs. The one thing that the Republicans are trying to do now that abortion is kind of something they feel they've won on, like they don't want that evangelical like police state to go back to sleep. So what they're doing is they're trying to redirect that energy toward these bills. And they love that it works when you get people to freak out about what's happening to the kids. And so the thing that they've discovered galvanizes parents is when they're trying to do something to your kids, and so that's this argument. But the ways that these bills are written are just so trashy and so weird. And I think the counter argument is to focus on what they actually want. It's just like you're running into people who are like teaching math and going like, don't talk about wieners. And you're just like, what? What are you talking about? And then they're, with the drag thing, it's like, well, just, if you don't want to go to drag shows, just don't go to drag shows. I don't know why you need to just go around painting things as sexually oriented businesses. Like then, and at the same time, they want to establish this world where like women can't do certain things and only men can. And they're telling you what role you can play when really the counter argument is, why don't we just let people do what they want? That protects you too, guys.
Yeah, it is very, very easy to not accidentally end up at a drag show or to go. I've almost never gone. I've gone a few times, but almost not. Most days I don't. And it doesn't take a lot of effort not to go to a thing. You can just not, is what I would say. But again, like that, you laid out in the beginning of your argument the entire point. This is not about these things being threats. They're not actually worried about drag shows. They're not actually worried about 2nd grade teachers talking about being pansexual or whatever. They're not worried about any of these things. Some of them are insane religious zealots and they've convinced themselves to be afraid. They're not actually afraid. They need a thing. And the best thing, almost always the best thing, which is why it comes up decade to decade, is they're coming for your kids. They are going to hurt your kids. They're going to sleep with your kids. They're going to potentially cannibalize your kids. And so you saw for a couple of years QAnon bubbling up in right-wing culture. And then eventually it kind of died away because all of it had been taken by the right. And they just said, oh, an elite cabal of Democrats is a little bit too abstract and it makes us seem like conspiracists. So just all teachers want to rape your children. We're just gonna go with that. And that's what they've done. Oh, and also drag queen story hour people, which we'd never heard of before that. Not a single one of these people had ever seen one of those performances, heard of one of those performances. But that sounds weird. So we're gonna go with that. And that's what it's done. It's just the QAnonization of the right. And I don't know how long it's going to last. It's the satanic panic of the 80s, except it doesn't rely on kids still playing D&D.
Like if someone is gender bending, whatever you want to call it, like if drag queens are someplace, that's fine. Like I'm fine with a rule that says like, I want to see fabric covering this much distance from your genitals in all directions. And I don't want a sexual event to be like foisted upon the children that is like overtly sexual. Fine, but you have to also apply that to like Hooters. Like that's the kind of stuff where like I think the left overcorrects a lot. It's like there should be some I mean, I understand like general decency and like let's not like, have super sexy things happen. But like if they're gonna say, let's get back to the good old days of Disney, like, Disney's got these trans characters and now it's a sexual movie. Like Belle Bang's a beast, dude. Like there's a makeout session at the end of every single Disney movie with the exception of like Bambi. Like it was always already sexual. Like the prince and the princess make the babies together. If you have a standard of like just kind of they can kiss at the end and then we see like birds fly away, fine. Then but at least apply that. Don't start with like a trailer that implies maybe LeFou's now explicitly gay, as opposed to saying, Gaston is the team I prefer to be on. Like he's saying he wants to play for that team. Like we can have a coded version of it, but there you go.
Yeah, and look, I would also say like it sucks that when we want a bill to be passed or when we want a change to be made, we have to spend years persuading people of it. They don't have to do that. Like in them fighting against gay marriage being legalized, they never had to actually demonstrate why it would be bad for America. They just kept saying that it would be bad for America. And then it was legalized and nothing happened. Nothing bad happened. And that doesn't matter, that doesn't hurt them. And then when they want to outlaw drag performances or whatever, they don't have to actually demonstrate why. The fact that those have been legal always and nothing bad has happened, why do they now need to be made illegal? They don't have to actually make that case. They just say it should be illegal. And it sucks that that's the asymmetry that we have. That they can take these things that are hurting no one and make it a national focus. And then we have to spend years convincing the country why people should have dental care. Like why people shouldn't be stuck on the streets. Anyway, a little bit frustrated. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.